Dear friends, this is a very great pleasure and privilege for me. 32 years ago, I would not have expected to be here at all. So this is a very special pleasure for me. My sister, Laurel Clark, was an observer here, followed the Arboretum since its inception. She has given up the rigor of working her way through airports, although she wanted to be with us today, but she decided to send a letter instead. And in view of my limited eyesight, I've asked my son, Ed, to read that in my stead.
Lucky day we have here. Could have been yesterday. This is her letter. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to thank the staff and all the wonderful volunteers that have made the Arboretum so special due to its improbable location in Nevada's Great Basin. My brother, Dr. Kleiner, had the vision and inspiration to establish an Arboretum in Reno. Due to our friendship with Mr. Wilbur May and his support, it came to fruition 30 years ago. What a fabulous accomplishment. In Illinois, there was a beautiful first growth woods on the property where we grew up. Our parents encouraged conservation, sensible land use, and enjoyment of the outdoors. We learned from them the love of trees and all of nature's myriad creations. I look with pleasure at this beautiful scene, knowing that it will thrive and grow and benefit future generations. The dedication of your supporters and volunteers will ensure the future of this endeavor. On behalf of our parents, Edgar L. and Fern Kleiner, Dr. Kleiner and I are forever grateful to be a part of this beautiful place. Thank you, Laurel Clark.
Thank you. So far as historical remarks, that's a hard place to start because there is so much history now that is associated with the Arboretum. I think in just a very few minutes I will point out a few of, to me, the highlights of the area where we are. But at the outset, I'd like to say, and going back to Tom's comments at the very outside, an important decision had to be made in the original Arboretum on top of the hill outside the ranch house. And that was how to exhibit the flora of the montane Sierra Nevada and the Great Basin, how to exhibit this in a meaningful way. The decision was made very early on at the point where Tom and I were wandering, and it was near the western entrance to the Arboretum. And at that point, aside from the major contribution, of course, of the May Foundation to get us started, we had a couple, the Annalise and Kirk Odenkrantz, who showed up with a check for $10,000. It was the first major contribution to our Arboretum. We decided instantly that everything to the west of that intersection would be devoted to montane Sierra Nevada flora. Everything to the east, down the pathway, would be devoted to the drought-tolerant, salt-tolerant flora of the Great Basin. That eventuated into the Fritz Wendt Trail. Dr. Wendt was CEO of the Desert Research Institute and had come here from the Missouri Botanical Gardens. When he got wind that there was an Arboretum in the making, naturally he showed up with great interest. He was with us yet at the dedication of the Arboretum in May of 1986. I dedicated that trail to him, the Fritz Wendt Trail. One of the remarkable features throughout the development of the Arboretum, and I'm talking about all three areas now, what was the original Arboretum outside the ranch houses, I call it phase one up on the mesa. We're in the phase two, the second area that was developed, the third area across Evans Creek. Some of the significant features, to me, the interesting features, one, let's go back to the Arboretum on top of the hill. An elderly lady by the name of Daisy Burke showed up and wanted to be represented in the Arboretum. That eventuated into the Charles and Daisy Burke Memorial Garden that we all know so well. Very popular for weddings, receptions, and just 10 days ago, the wonderful party in the garden of the May Arboretum Society. Because of the public response and the interest in being represented in the Arboretum, we recognized within just a year or two that there had to be an expansion of the Arboretum. Where were we going to go? We looked right down here. Now, you must remember that 32 years ago, 30 years ago, that this was all open country. It was meadow, and there were cattle grazing down below us between here and Evans Pond and up the Sierra. And there were a few Pacific willows around Evans Pond and up Evans Creek, a few major old cottonwood trees roaming around, and that was the outlook at that time. I don't believe in miracles, but as I wander the Arboretum today and look all around me from any point, I can very easily be convinced that a miracle has occurred here in the 30 years since the Arboretum was dedicated. So far as this second area that we developed of the Arboretum, it devoted exclusively to trees, unlike the first part, which became the Arboretum and Botanical Grounds, because we had to exhibit everything in that first part. So far as we knew at that time, that was going to be the extent of the Arboretum. So we had to have not only trees, but shrubs, annuals, perennials, succulents, pteridophytes, blah, blah, every conceivable thing. But when we moved here, the emphasis is on trees. I'll point out just a couple remarkable features of this area. The May Foundation provided a major contribution for what developed into Honey's Garden. Before that was constructed, what is Honey's Garden today was a clay slope of weeds with a pathway running around the top of the hill. And so today, of course,